Live from the campus of Southern University, it's the Bottom Line TV show, bringing real truth to today's problems. And now, your host for the Bottom Line TV show, Mr. Bruce Walker.
Welcome to the Bottom Line. First, giving my obedience to Christ, who's truly the head of all of our lives. Last week on the show, we was blessed to have Dr. Ronald Mason, president of the Southern University system. And with the spirit of getting back to school, we brought Dr. Mason on so he could share with us some of the things that he's seen in educating the young black youth, as well as give us some insight on the wonderful program that he started in the New Orleans area, which is the 5-5 Agenda. At this time, I'd like to present to you again the president of Southern University System, Dr. Ronald Mason.
Thank you for having me, Bruce. Man, I appreciate you. On last week, you taught us so much, Doc. I guess none of us really never looked at the challenges of the minority youth from that perspective, and not only did you teach us something, you actually have done some things back in another area of Louisiana to help try to rectify this problem. And one of the things I noticed is that, well, it was two main things. The gentleman that you focused on had a history of not having a father in the house. And the other things that you focused on was that you called them stars. And I think that is a positive step in identifying our disadvantaged youth. We have to present them in a better positive light because, you know, I don't think I could find a point in history where the African American male has been presented in a positive light. So I think you're off to a wonderful thing, and now I'm going to ask you to expound on that 5-5 agenda and tell us more about the roots of it, what motivated you to get it going, and exactly how it's working for y'all in New Orleans.
Sure, and thank you for having me back, by the way.
Pleasure.
Just a couple of things. One, if you looked at the video, I noticed you said that we were focusing on young men who didn't have fathers in the home.
Mm-hmm.
The truth is we weren't really focusing on that. It just happened to turn out that way. We were looking for what you call these hidden stars, which are young men that score less than a 19 on the ACT and really are not predicted to do well in college. But we put together this process to actually go out and find these hidden stars, you know, young people who, if they had the advantages or just the same opportunity as other people, would shine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we found them, and it just turned out that because of the condition of black men in America who have those kinds of demographics, they didn't have any men in the household, or at least not fathers. So that was an accident, but it tells you something about what we're dealing with here. So the 5-5 agenda is sort of like this. In the video, again, a light bulb went off for me when I heard that quote from Thomas Jefferson, and it's in your book, where he said, he was talking about slavery, and he said, "We have a wolf by the ear, we cannot hold on to him, but we cannot safely turn him loose. In the one scale is justice, but in the other is self-preservation," which to me said that, the people that designed this country made a conscious decision to put justice on the side and create this thing called slavery because they felt like they needed it to make money in America. And in order to do that, they were willing to just put justice on the side and create this very unjust system called slavery. And then, of course, the video makes the point that slavery became Jim Crow, where black men were purposely put in jail so they could rent them out to the plantations and the mines and so forth. And then Jim Crow became the war on drugs, which really ends up looking like Jim Crow because, you know, when you become a felon, you can't get a job, you can't get public benefits, you can't live in public housing with your parents, you can't vote. Imagine living in that kind of reality and what kind of opportunities you don't have because you're a felon in America.
Now, I'm going to stop you right there and ask you a question simply because most of us think Jim Crow is a person. Yeah. Because we're that misinformed about our history, and because we're so misinformed about our history, we're struggling to find our place in this present time. So if you have another second, would you share just a little bit more about what you know about Jim Crow that will, enlighten our audience on how far back this struggle goes, Doc?
Yeah, well, Jim Crow came after slavery. Slavery ended in 1865, technically. And somewhere between 1865 and the early 30s, let's say, there was a series of rules, regulations, laws, procedures that really subjugated black people and disenfranchised them in a way that wasn't slavery, but it was almost slavery by another name. For example, you couldn't loiter on a corner. If you did, they were arresting young boys as young as 10 years old and putting them in jail for 3 years, just so they'd have a labor force, you see. You had to pass a test in order to be able to vote, right? And the test was something that nobody could pass, and half the time, if you were black in America, you couldn't read anyway. So it was a series of things that were designed really to keep black men unemployed and put them in jail. Black codes, Jim Crow laws, and Jim Crow was the name that they gave it. In fact, I don't know if you ever read the Doonesbury comic strip. There's a comic strip called Doonesbury, and one of the characters in there is Jim Crow. And it's this black crow that goes around the country and shows up in all these conservative Republican states and talks about all of these new laws that are stopping people from voting if they're black and poor. And it's just like Jim Crow. So read Doonesbury, you'll see Jim Crow is now a comic strip character that is doing today what he used to do back in after slavery.
So what are you saying is that we're just repeating or the products of a repeated system that has proven to fail when implemented, I guess, to a certain population?
Well, I guess what I'm saying, here's the way I explain it. When you look at what's happening or the condition of black people in America, especially black men, right? The fact that, we're the most unemployed, most highest homicide rate, highest infant mortality rate, highest incarceration rate, right? When you look at those things, you can only explain it in one of two ways. Either black people, especially black men, are born genetically predisposed to make more bad choices than everybody else, right?
Come on, Doc.
Or there's something wrong with America. And there's no science to say that black men are born, to make more bad choices than everybody else. There's no science at all to back that up. So there must be something wrong with America. And what's wrong in America is this wolf, this business model that was consciously designed as part of America and has been with us for the last 200 some odd years. And the real challenge for America is not to fix black people and black men. The challenge is to fix America, to change that business model, because even if it made sense to Jefferson, right, back 200 years ago, let's just say it was a business decision and they did what they thought was right? Mm-hmm. It clearly doesn't make any sense today, because that business model breaks up families, it breaks up communities, it puts crime on everybody's doorstep, it increases the cost of education, it increases the cost of health care. It's a bad business model for today. So here's the punchline. If you really think about it, right, in this day of global competitiveness, when America needs all of the human capital it can muster, right, and you look at all the human capital that we're wasting because of this old, antiquated business model, right, before we put justice on the side in order to have self-preservation, now, as we sit here today, we actually need to bring justice back in order to have self-preservation. Because if we don't bring black men back into the equation, then America's future is going to have many more challenges than it has today.
Now that's powerful, Doc. We're going to take a break right here. We'll be back in 60 seconds. But when we come back, I want to bring to Doc's attention something President Kennedy said when he made that famous speech, and we'll give him a chance to expound on that. We'll be right back. Don't y'all move.
First Financial of Baton Rouge, an accounting firm, approved to prepare, audit, and submit financial information for claims due to the BP Deepwater Horizon spill. If your business is located in Louisiana or Mississippi and you had lower revenues in 2010 than any of the previous 3 years, you're eligible to file. First Financial of Baton Rouge has filed over $80 million in claims. Look, there's no risk. Call today. 663-2382.
Ascension Gonzalez Rehabilitation Hospital. What you expected more.
My grandfather and I used to have tea parties together, but then he fell. Thanks to Ascension Gonzalez Rehabilitation Hospital, he's all better now.
Ascension Gonzalez Rehabilitation Hospital. What you expected more.
Welcome back to The Bottom Line, and if you're just joining us, we're here today with Dr. Ronald Mason, president of the Southern University System. And before he left, he was educating us, and I mean really educating us, on why we struggle to educate the young black youth that we're having to educate today. And one of the things that he brought forward was that America needs to change its approach. And I said it reminds me of that great speech President Kennedy gave in the 60s when he stood on the steps in Washington and he asked, it's not what this country could do for you, but it's what you could do for this country. The most profound thing that got my attention was that he referred to us all as citizens. He never said Americans, he said citizens. And I believe he did that because he understood that the country was in such bad shape, it's gonna take every able body to restore it. And you know, our America today, she is ailing from battles over the last 15, 20 years, from everybody, from the Taliban to the Invisible Man. It has shaken her well-whittle to China has to support her, and her credit is being shaken. So America herself is wounded, and if she's going to be restored, it's going to take a change in the approach that we've been taking. And I think Dr. Mason have a wonderful program and a wonderful start down in New Orleans. So Doc, with that being said, that program that you're doing down in New Orleans, focusing on those stars, those hidden stars, I think in the 70805, you ought to be able to find a whole lot of those hidden stars. So one of the things I want you to maybe enlighten us on is, how do we get that program duplicated in those type of communities where we know there are hidden stars, but it doesn't exist?
Sure. Okay, let's talk about the hidden stars, and it ties exactly to what you were saying about China. A friend of mine, Jim Clifton, who runs the Gallup poll, right? He wrote a book called The Coming Jobs Wars. And he really says, what he says in the book is that, you know, America's challenge really is over jobs, because, you know, our workforce is not trained. We have technology in warehouses, innovative technology in warehouses that we don't have the manpower to be able to get out, right? And then he says that statistically, 10 out of every 1,000 people in the world is stars, right? And these stars are people that create opportunities for other people. And out of that, 1 out of every 10 is a superstar, okay? And the thing is that black men are born with just as many stars and superstars as everybody else. Because of the wolf that we talked about, we lose too many of them along the way. So the program in New Orleans, which is the pilot program for the 5/5 Agenda for America, is about, as I said before, finding these hidden stars and enabling them to shine. So we brought in 16 in the first class there. No, I'm sorry, 14 as the first pilot project. Of the 14, 13 are still in college, and 11 are still in the program, which is a high percentage given the fact that it was a pilot, and also given the fact that these students usually have about a 40% retention rate from first to second year. So we feel like we got something here, okay? And we designed this as a national demonstration project with 4 goals. 1, to bring truth to the conversation about the relationship between black men in America. So part of 5/5 Agenda is a research and policy center, and it's actually based at Howard University, okay? The second part is to increase the number of black male teachers. Black male graduate, bachelor's degree graduates. Because we're going into a bachelor degree world global economy, and you got to have a bachelor's degree to compete.
Exactly.
The third one is to increase black male teachers, because we want to create change agents to go back into the public school system and create more change agents over time. And then the last one, and this is important, because this is a generational agenda, a generational struggle, we need to be able to do it beyond our lifetimes. So we need an institutional base. And the institutional base, the only institutions in America that's ever wanted to take on the wolf has been historically black universities. So we want to duplicate what we're doing in New Orleans at historically black universities around the South, okay? Now, just to tell you what kind of progress we're making, we've talked with the U.S. Attorney General about this, and he likes the idea to work with us. We've talked to the U.S. Secretary of Education. He said the idea is powerful and also perhaps a new value proposition for HBCUs. We've already submitted proposals to some of the major foundations around the country, and our hope is that if we can put together enough money, and the federal government's going to have to come to the table on this, we can duplicate this at 10 HBCUs and produce about 200 black male teachers a year.
Good, great.
And if we do that over the term of 20 years, you can see how we can start to, and if we train them to understand the wolf and help other young black men understand the wolf, so they can go back and train some more. It's much like what you're doing with the Four Woes and your morning show and your app and everything else. It's about helping people understand the truth of the situation, that we're up against something that unless we understand what it is, it's too big to overcome on our own, and that we need faith and we need cooperation with each other, and we need to work together, and we need strong institutions if we're going to take down this wolf over time. That was a long answer, but that's the answer.
But no, we need it, and I appreciate it, and I think I have another question, because presently the program is focused on the college level, but us here in Baton Rouge are struggling to get them out of high school to college. So is there possible a spinoff of that program that may focus on primarily high school students that we've found with that same struggle? Because, my thing is, if I can't get them out to high school, you can't get them in college, Doc.
Right. Well, it's more than high school. Remember, it's all connected, right? Mm. And I think in Louisiana, about 20, maybe 30% of the, I'm guessing on this, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, of the students who start kindergarten or first grade, only about 30% actually end up graduating from high school, okay? And of the ones that get into high school, a little over half actually finish, okay? So the issue is high school, but the issue starts a whole lot before high school, right?
All right.
And remember, part of the 5/5 agenda is to train teachers to go back into the K-12 system. We had a program in Mississippi when I was there, really, which was part of the foundation of how we refined it when we came to Louisiana, and it was called the Mississippi Learning Institute. And we actually ran an inner city K-12 feeder system that fed into Jackson State, right in our neighborhood there. And by the time we were done, the students started kindergarten at reading level, and the scores for the students in this inner city K-12 system was as good as the scores in the white suburbs around Jackson, right?
That's amazing.
But you got to start early, and then at Jackson State, to show you how it all connects, when we got there, the graduation rate was something like 27%. By the time I left, it was about 48%. See, but you got to connect all the pieces. It's all connected. It's all connected.
Doc, I can't thank you enough. We got to take a pause for the cause. Y'all stay tuned. He's really taking us to school today, so stay right there and we'll be right back.
Finally, the book we've all been waiting for. The Four Woes of the Black Man, a message for the entire nation, by author Bruce Walker. Get the free app today. It's available on iPhone and Android. Download your ebook today and read the book right from your mobile device. You'll be glad you did. Faith and Hope Independent Living and Wellness Center, adult daycare treatment that offers individual, group, family, and adolescent counseling, long-term personal care services for elderly and disabled adults. Faith and Hope Independent Living and Wellness Center, located at 9508 Plank Road, Suite C in Clinton. Call today, 225-683-3997. Faith and Hope Living and Wellness Center.
Changing lives one day at a time.
Faith and Hope Wellness Center.
Welcome back to The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Bruce Walker, and if you're just joining us, we're sitting here today with Dr. Ronald Mason, president of the Southern University System, and he's educated us today from everything from the challenges that he's familiar with in educating the young African American, from really making most of us know that Jim Crow was not a man. It was actually a set of laws that was implemented after slavery. And the thing that I want to talk to him a little more, get him to expound on a little more is, you know, for me, I posed the question, why after almost 230-something years, we still have all of these prefixes in front of American? I believe that it only should be two states. Either you're a citizen or you're not. And I'm going to give Dr. Mason a chance to actually expound on that from his perspective and to see how he could help us shine a better light on that.
So this idea of America, right, it really is still an experiment. The notion of a land of many lands and a people of many peoples is really unique in the history of the world. And the truth is, we don't know yet whether or not it's going to work. Still many challenges for the reality of America to conform to the ideals of America, okay? Now, the Founding Fathers, they got it intellectually. I mean, they were brilliant guys, right? And they had some of the best thinking of the time. And they set up this country based on, certain values: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. All men are created equal, right? But there's a real difference between what they say the values are and the values we actually live, right? Now, if you think about it, the people that designed the country, the architects that were sitting around the table, had three things in common. They were European, they were men, and they were rich, okay? And the three issues that's critical to America's future that they left unresolved on purpose, right, was the issue of gender. Remember, women couldn't vote, right, or own, I don't even think they own property back then, right? Gender, race, and we just finished talking about race, and the third one is class, rich and poor, right? So the real fear and challenge that the Founding Fathers had was that they were outnumbered. See, they had more poor white people and poor black people who were actually getting along pretty good, right? In those days than there were them. So they had to figure out how they could control the numbers that they had in a way that would allow them to keep making money. So the system that I call the wolf really has two pieces to it. One is what happened to black people, a system of slavery, right? But the other piece is that they had to consciously drive a wedge between poor white people and poor black people. And if you read the history, it is clear that that was something they consciously did, to make white people think that they were more like the rich folks in the picture just because they were white than they were like the poor black folk that they were working side by side with every day, okay? And over time, you can see how that policy has put poor white folks in a position now where they actually do things against their self-interest just because they want to prove that they're not black.
That's
okay. It's like affirmative action. You know, you could probably count on your fingers, and there's a few. I'm one of them that had advantages of affirmative action, right?
Good.
But the notion of reverse discrimination is such a minuscule issue. But look at all the energy and fighting we do among poor black people and poor white people, while the folks that are going to Harvard and Yale and
Princeton
ain't got to worry about it. You see,
Right.
So we've all kind of been duped by this wolf here, and I think part of the challenge, in order for America to be, for its ideals to conform to the values that, for its actions to conform to the ideals that we have as a nation, right, is that first we have to get the truth out. And I think everybody has to understand that, as you said, we're more about being Americans than we are about being black, white, red, or green, right? and that the issue has more to do with wealth than it does with race, because, you know, the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer, and that gap keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the more we fight among each other, the less we deal with the real issue, which is that there's more money going to fewer people every day. Right? So it's kind of, I mean, it really is, and you know, you talked about traveling the world, and I've traveled the world, I've been to a lot of places. And the one thing that really strikes you is that there really are two kinds of people in this world. They're not Buddhist, they're not Catholic, they're not Muslim. It's people that got a lot of money and people that don't.
Good, great. That's it.
That's it.
That's it. And you know, it's interesting you share that from that perspective, Doc, because, you know, for me, and part of my campaign is that the Christ that I'm petitioning everybody to be like, he came preaching edification, which is everybody together. And you've identified so many systems that has intentionally separated the people. And you know, you may have heard me say it before, but I believe our whole country right now is governed on two simple principles: separation and fear. And all of America, like you shared with me, all of America fear the black man because he's never been presented in a positive light. So one of the things, hopefully, that we'll come to understand is how important it is for them to be recognized as stars for a change. You know, we've done it the other way for the last 200 years. And maybe when you go in the store, they won't just automatically follow you. Or when I'm walking across the street, they won't automatically push their car doors. And I think that has been that way because we as a people has been presented as the boogeyman to America. And I don't think that's beneficial no longer for America to identify no class of people as the boogeyman, Doc.
Yeah, first it's a lie, and then second, you're right, it was part of an old business model that even if you argue it worked to help get the country started, clearly is not working for America today. Because it just costs too much in too many ways, and then even when you put the economic cost on the side, the moral and spiritual costs are incalculable, and it really does eat at the soul of the nation. And it's the soul of the nation that soul people are here to help America find.
Exactly. Right. I love that, Doc. Man, look, I am sorry we are coming to the end of our show. I cannot thank you enough for taking 2 weeks of your time out to come here and join us. But here again, you are passionate about getting your message out. I thank you again for chiming in on my message because when I get somebody like you that has such a history in advocating for something that I'm just starting to advocate for, it's a wonderful blessing. So here again, I thank you. You're always welcome back on the show. We can't thank you enough for allowing us to use this great campus to bring this platform forward. And if at any time that you feel like you want to come back and take us to school again, you please let us know, Doc.
You got a deal.
Thank you very much. God bless you, young man.
Email thebottomline@gmail.com. The Bottom Line is an AG production.